I found an old mixtape in a box under my bed songs we played on that summer drive, windows down, hearts wide open. I pressed play, and there it was, the love I left behind singing back to me. The first note took me back, as if I had never left. I could feel the wind in my hair, the sun on my face, and your hand in mine. It was the kind of day that felt like it could last forever. We didn't know where we were going, but it didn't matter. We were just living in that moment, and it felt like the world was ours. But that was then, and this is now. The tape is old. The years have passed. And yet, that love, your love, still feels so close. We all have loves we've left behind. Maybe it was a person, a dream we once believed in, or a part of ourselves that we've lost along the way. These are the loves that still call to us, quietly, gently, like an old song we can't quite forget. They're the things we carry with us, even when we don't realize it. They live in the corners of our hearts, always waiting to come back even when we think we've moved on. And I wonder, why do these loves never truly go away? Why do they keep calling to us, even when so much time has passed? Maybe it's because they were once a big part of us. They helped shape who we are, and even though we might not always understand it, they still shape us today. When we think of love, we often think of the kind we're chasing in the present, the kind that feels new, exciting, and full of possibilities. But there's another kind of love, too, the love that we've lost. It's the love we can't touch anymore, but it's still there, whispering to us. This kind of love isn't something to forget. It's something to understand. It's something to hold on to, even if we can't bring it back. As I listened to that mixtape, I realized something important. Chasing these lost loves isn't about going back in time. It's about finding out what they still mean to us. They are more than just memories. They are part of who we were, and they still have something to teach us. This book is about chasing those loves, not to relive the past, but to understand it. To see what it still offers us today. To see how the things we've left behind can still shape our lives now. Maybe, like me, you found yourself thinking about something you've lost, a relationship, a dream, or a piece of you that feels like it's been forgotten. You might wonder if you'll ever really move on. You might wonder if that love will ever stop calling. The truth is, it might not. And that's okay. But maybe that's not something to fear. Maybe it's something we need to chase, not to turn back time, but to understand how those loves can still guide us forward. What love do you hear calling to you? It might be soft or it might be loud, but it's there waiting for you to listen. We all have something we're chasing, something that tugs at our hearts when we least expect it. So let's chase it together. Let's see what that love can teach us, and maybe, just maybe, find the courage to embrace it once again. Chapter 1: The Shape of Absence. The last time I walked through the house, it felt like a strange dream. The rooms were empty, the walls bare, the floorboards creaking underfoot, almost as if they were whispering secrets of the past. The smell of old wood and faded paint still lingered in the air, but it was different, thinner somehow, as if the house itself had exhaled its last breath. This was the home where I had learned to walk, where I had laughed and cried, where every corner held a memory. And yet now it was nothing more than a shell of its former self. The walls, once alive with the voices of family and the rhythm of everyday life, stood silent, as if mourning their own loss. I ran my hand along the familiar edges of the doorframe, feeling the smooth, chipped wood beneath my fingers. This was where I had stood as a child, waiting for my parents to come home, counting the minutes in the quiet stillness. I could almost hear their voices in the distance, their laughter echoing through the hallway. But it was just a memory now, an imprint that would soon fade along with everything else. When we sold the house, I thought I was ready. I had convinced myself that it was just a place, just a collection of bricks and mortar that no longer served a purpose. But as the moving trucks pulled away and the door clicked shut for the last time, I realized something I hadn't expected. That house wasn't just a building. It was part of me, woven into the very fabric of who I was. And now it was gone. As I stood there, in the empty hallway of my childhood home, I could feel the absence pressing down on me. It was a weight I couldn't escape. The absence of the people who had lived there, The absence of the life we had built together, it was all around me, hanging in the air like dust that refused to settle. The house was still there, but it wasn't the same, and neither was I. It's strange how love leaves an imprint, even when its object fades. The house may have been sold, the furniture moved out, but the memories remained, locked in the corners of every room, in the quiet spaces between the walls. Relationships, places, passions, no matter how much time passes, no matter how far we move from them, they leave marks on us. Even when they're gone, they don't truly disappear. They simply shift shape, becoming part of the landscape of who we are. I walked into the kitchen where I had spent hours with my mother helping her make dinner, listening to the sound of her soft humming as she worked. The cabinets, now stripped of their contents, felt like an old friend whose face I had forgotten, but whose presence still lingered in my mind. I could almost see her there, her hands moving skillfully as she prepared a meal. The scent of garlic and onions, the warmth of the oven, it was all there, even though the kitchen was now silent, empty. I stood by the window staring out at the backyard where I'd spent countless afternoons playing with my brothers, chasing the summer sun and pretending the world was endless. The tree we had planted together, the one that had grown taller with each passing year, now stood in the corner, its branches bare, waiting for the seasons to change. It was a quiet witness to everything that had come and gone. The backyard had always been a place of safety, a place where I could retreat from the world and simply be. But now, the grass was overgrown, the fence was falling apart, and the air felt different, thinner, colder, like a place that had been forgotten. I could still hear the echoes of our laughter, the sound of the ball bouncing across the yard, the sharp crack of a bat hitting a ball. Those moments were still alive in me, but they were fading, slipping away with every passing day. I turned and left the house, stepping out onto the porch for the last time. The street in front of me was quiet, too quiet. The neighbors had long moved away, the streetlights dim and flickering. It was a ghost town in my chest, but the streets still hummed with life. The past was always there, lurking just beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to remind me of what had been lost. The house was no longer mine, and yet it was. It would always be with me, like a shadow that never quite leaves. The love I had for that place didn't vanish when the doors were locked or when the keys were handed over. It had simply transformed, become something I could no longer touch, but something I would carry with me for as long as I lived. Love leaves an imprint, even when its object fades. It leaves its mark in the shape of memories, in the things we hold dear. And no matter how much we try to move on, those imprints stay with us. They are the invisible threads that connect us to our past, the markers that tell us who we were and sometimes who we still are. Memory map? Take a moment to think about a love you've lost, a person, a place, or a dream. Close your eyes and try to recall a moment tied to that love. Maybe it's a quiet afternoon, maybe it's the sound of laughter or the warmth of a hand in yours. What shape does that moment leave? Is it a feeling that lingers in your chest? Is it the sound of a song that always makes you think of them? Is it the scent of something familiar, like an old sweater or a favorite dish? Now, think about how that memory shapes you. Does it still guide you in some way, even if you can't always see it? What lessons, what feelings, what pieces of yourself does it leave behind? This memory, like the house I left behind, will always be a part of you. Its shape may shift, but it will never fully fade. And that's okay, because sometimes it's these imprints that help us understand who we are and who we are becoming. Chapter 2. Why We Leave Love Behind. The train station was cold that morning. It wasn't the kind of cold that cuts straight to your bones, but the kind that sits quietly, just beneath the surface, a chill that seems to come from the heart of the place itself. The concrete floors were slick with the remnants of an early morning fog, and the dull yellow lights above flickered in a way that made everything feel even more distant. We stood there facing each other, the space between us growing, not because we were moving away, but because the moment was drawing to a close. I couldn't look at you. Not because I didn't want to, but because if I did, I would have to admit something I wasn't ready to face. You had always been the one I never wanted to leave. The one who made everything feel possible, even when life seemed too complicated. You were the breath of fresh air in a room full of smoke, the promise of something beautiful in a world that often felt too gray. We had made plans, countless plans for the future. We had talked about the places we'd visit, the memories we'd make, the life we would build. But here we were, at a train station, and none of it mattered anymore. I had never thought I'd be the one to walk away from you. But there we were, the train's horn sounding in the distance, like the final warning. I looked at your face, but the words stuck in my throat. You could see the tears, though, could see them falling before I even had the chance to wipe them away. And you were trying so hard to be strong, to hold everything together for me, even as we both knew that saying goodbye was the only option left. It wasn't about love. It was about practicality, about the life I thought I needed to build, the future I couldn't afford to risk. The world told me that love would not pay the bills or secure the career I had dreamed of. Love, the world said, was a luxury, something to come later when I had more time, more stability. It was something that would have to wait. But the heart doesn't listen to the world. It listens to something deeper, something more painful, something that stays with you long after the words are said and the door closes. "I can't do this," I finally whispered, not sure if you could even hear me over the sound of the train, over the roar of my own thoughts. You nodded, tears welling in your eyes, and I thought maybe you understood, maybe you had always understood too. But that didn't make it any easier. The train rolled in with a screech, and the world around us seemed to disappear for a moment, like the universe was holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable to unfold. When the doors opened, it was as though everything I had ever known, every piece of the life I thought we would build, was slipping away from me. I should have held on tighter. I should have told you I was scared. I should have told you that I wanted more than anything to build a life with you, to keep going. But I didn't. I stepped back and I let you go. We leave love for many reasons. Sometimes it's fear of failure, fear of uncertainty, or simply the fear of change. We leave love because we are told by the world that it isn't enough, that practicality and security are more important than passion and dreams. We leave love because we convince ourselves that we have no choice, that the future we want requires sacrifices we aren't ready to make. But the heart doesn't forget so easily. There's a reason why we still think about the love we left behind, even when we know it was the right decision. That's where John Bowlby's attachment theory comes into play. Bowlby, a renowned psychologist, suggested that humans are naturally inclined to form deep emotional bonds, or attachments, with others. These attachments are vital to our emotional and psychological development. They are how we learn trust, intimacy, and security. And when we lose them, when we walk away, or when love is taken from us, it creates a kind of emotional void that doesn't heal easily. Our attachment to the people we love forms a deep, sometimes subconscious, bond that doesn't simply vanish because we walk away. Even when we believe we've moved on, those attachments linger. We carry them with us like ghosts of the past, whispering in our minds when we least expect it, pulling us back to what we've lost. The more significant the love, the harder it is to let go. And so, we are left with the echoes of a love that no longer fits into our lives, but whose absence we can never truly escape. The heart continues to pull us back to the place we left behind, even when the mind tells us it was the right thing to do. It is in those moments, those quiet, tender moments when we are alone with our thoughts, that the weight of what we've lost becomes clear. It's as if we're trying to fill a hole that no amount of logic or reason can fill. And no matter how far we run, how many years pass, there is always something that tugs at our hearts, reminding us of the love we let go of. Think about a time when you walked away from love, whether it was a person, a dream, or something else that mattered deeply to you. Why did you leave? Was it a choice or a circumstance? Did fear play a role in your decision? Were there pressures, expectations, or realities that pushed you to let go of something that once felt so right? Or is it simply a matter of timing, of two different paths that couldn't align? Take a moment to write about why you walked away. What did you hope to gain by leaving? And looking back, do you still feel that the choice was the right one? Or, like me, do you sometimes wonder if there was another way, another path that might have kept you in love? Chapter 3. The Pull of the Past. It wasn't the first time I'd gone up to the attic, but it was the first time I'd gone up there for something other than cleaning. The dust-covered boxes, old family portraits, and forgotten holiday decorations had long since become part of the background, no longer worth a second glance. But today, as I climbed the creaky stairs, something was different. There was a faint pull, a quiet invitation from the past asking me to take a step back in time. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, only that something up there was calling me. And that's when I saw it hidden beneath a pile of old coats and a stack of half-torn books. A guitar case. I hadn't seen it in years. The guitar had been my first love, my companion through teenage dreams and late-night melodies. But somewhere along the way, it had been left behind. Life had taken me on a different path, and I had packed away the things I thought I no longer needed. The guitar had been one of those things.
I knelt down slowly, my hands trembling as I unclipped the case.
The hinges squeaked in protest, but I didn't mind. There was something about the way that sound echoed in the stillness of the attic, something familiar, as though the very air around me remembered. The guitar inside was covered in a fine layer of dust, the wood smelling of time dust and dreams, a combination of memories I had nearly forgotten. I brushed the dust away with my fingers, careful not to damage the worn edges. The once vibrant wood had faded, the strings now rusted and stretched out of tune, but there was something about it that still felt alive. It was as if the guitar held all the pieces of who I was back then, waiting for me to pick it up and remember.
I lifted it from the case, feeling the cool weight of the instrument against my chest. My fingers hovered over the strings for a moment, unsure, as if I was afraid that the magic of what we had would be lost.
But then I pressed my fingers to the strings just enough to strum a chord. The sound was off-key, but it didn't matter. The sound itself, the vibration in my fingertips, the resonance in my chest was enough to unlock something inside me. It was the faint echo of who I'd once been.
It was the feeling of late nights spent with my guitar, my only companion when the world felt too big.
It was the sense of possibility, the belief that music could solve anything, that one song could change the course of a day or even a life. The chord rang out in the silence of the attic, lingering in the air as though it too was holding on to something, the memory of who I had been. The past doesn't call out to us because it was perfect. It calls because it holds pieces of who we were and who we might still be. The guitar, with its faded finish and rusted strings, was a reminder that life hadn't always been about deadlines, responsibilities, and bills. There had been a time when my greatest concern was whether or not I could finish writing a song before the sun came up, or whether the lyrics I had scribbled down in a notebook would ever be good enough to share. There had been a time when I believed anything was possible, when the future seemed like an open road. And yet here I was, a professional with a steady job, walking the straight line that life had drawn for me. Somewhere along the way, I had stopped playing. The guitar had been stashed away in the attic, just like all the other things I had once loved. And I suppose, just like a part of me, I strummed another chord, this time more carefully, trying to remember the old songs. They felt like strangers now, slipping through my fingers as though they were never truly mine to begin with.
I couldn't help but wonder how it had all gotten away from me.
How had the joy of playing, the excitement of creation, faded into the background?
For a moment, the sadness of it all threatened to swallow me whole.
But then something shifted.
There was still music in me, still a piece of that person who used to chase melodies with nothing more than a dream and a guitar.
It had never left. The past didn't fade away. It had just been tucked into a corner, waiting for me to come back and claim it.
I closed my eyes, allowing the memory to wash over me.
I could see the small room where I used to sit, the afternoon sunlight streaming in through the window, dust motes dancing in the golden glow. I could hear the soft hum of the guitar, the way the notes filled the space like they were meant to be there.
I could hear my voice shaky at first, finding strength as the song took shape.
And then I could hear the sound of my heart beating, alive with the thrill of creating something new.
That person, the one who dreamed of music and freedom, was still inside me.
The guitar in my hands was proof of that. It was a piece of who I had been, but it wasn't gone. It had been waiting, tucked away for when I was ready to remember. I strummed again, this time with a little more confidence.
The notes were still a little off, the strings still old and rusted, but they were mine.
They were mine to play again, to rediscover and to shape into something new. And as the sound filled the attic, I felt the old excitement stir inside me. I wasn't the same person who had put the guitar away all those years ago, but I was still that person too. The person who could sit in a room and create something beautiful, even if it was just for myself. Take a moment to revisit something you once loved, something that may have been tucked away for years. Maybe it's a song, a photograph, or even an old hobby you set aside. What does it stir now? Does it bring a sense of longing, or does it remind you of who you were before life pulled you in a different direction? What feelings come up when you reconnect with that part of yourself? Is there a spark of the person you once were? Or maybe, as it did for me, it brings back the possibility of who you might still become. Sometimes, the past doesn't need to be a place we leave behind. It can be a part of us that's waiting quietly to be rediscovered. Chapter 4, The First Step Forward. I don't know why I thought it would be easier.
Maybe it was because I'd spent so much time thinking about it, building up the moment in my head, trying to convince myself that I was ready.
But standing in front of that door, my heart pounding so loudly I thought it might rattle my ribs, I realized I was anything but ready. It had been years since I'd seen Alex. Years since we had last shared laughter, tears, and everything in between. But somewhere deep down, I had known that there was unfinished business between us. It wasn't about romance, not anymore, but about reconnecting with a friendship I had abandoned without fully understanding why.
Life had swept me away, and somewhere along the way, I had left Alex behind.
I thought of all the times I'd meant to reach out, how many times I had picked up the phone, only to put it down again. The excuses were easy enough: busy work life, the fear that things had changed too much, the uncertainty of whether I had the right to show up after all this time. But none of that mattered anymore. Not today. The street was quiet, and the houses stood in their neat rows, like old friends who had settled into their own routines, untouched by the passage of time. Alex's house was just as I remembered it, pale blue with white trim, the garden out front a bit wild, but still full of color. The kind of house you'd notice from a distance, the kind that felt like home the minute you walked inside. But I stood there at the front step, my finger hovering over the doorbell. The doorbell. Simple, ordinary, but it felt like a world of pressure resting in that one moment.
I could almost hear Alex's voice in my head saying, "What took you so long?"
And yet I didn't know what I was expecting.
The truth was, I didn't know what I was doing.
So I pressed the button. The door creaked open, and so did my nerves. I half expected Alex to be standing there with a scowl on their face, or worse, to have the door slam shut. But instead, there was a familiar face, Alex, though older, with a little more gray in their hair and a few more lines around their eyes, stood in the doorway with the same warm, mischievous smile I remembered. "Well, look who finally decided to show up," Alex said, the grin widening. I could feel my breath catch in my throat, but the humor in their voice softened the tension. "It's been a while," I said, my voice slightly shaking despite my attempts to hide it. Alex stepped back, gesturing for me to come in. "You don't say. Come on in. I've got coffee brewing if you want some." I hesitated for a moment before stepping across the threshold. It felt surreal, walking through that door again. But the second my foot crossed the threshold, I realized that I was doing something I hadn't done in years. I was stepping into the unknown. As we sat down at the kitchen table, a steaming mug of coffee in front of me, the words between us came easily. It was as if time hadn't passed at all, as if there had been no gap, no distance between us, even though so much had changed in the years we'd been apart. Alex had kept their usual quirky charm, peppering their stories with humor, and I couldn't help but laugh at the things we had once shared, laugh at how the world had spun us in different directions, but somehow we were still here, still laughing. But as we spoke, a quiet realization settled over me. Coming here, knocking on that door, wasn't just about rekindling a friendship, it was about finding the courage to chase something that I had left behind. Not just Alex, but the version of myself I had been when we were close. The person who could make time stand still with a conversation. The person who could laugh without worrying about what was next. Chasing love in whatever form it takes begins with courage. It starts with stepping into the unknown, fueled by a hope that maybe, just maybe, the past can meet the present and form something new. But it's never easy. It's never as simple as walking up to a door and pressing a doorbell. It's the act of saying, "I'm here. I'm willing to try again." The conversation was easy, too easy, and yet, underneath it all, I could sense the weight of what had been lost. There was a part of me that wanted to ask why we had drifted apart, why I had stayed away for so long. But the moment wasn't about the past anymore. It was about the now, about finding a way to pick up the threads we had left behind and see what might still be there. You might not be standing at an old friend's door today, but there's something in your life that you've left behind, a person, a dream, part of yourself. This week, pick one of those loves you've left behind and take that first step toward it. Maybe it's a phone call, a text, an email. Maybe it's picking up that hobby you put down for years or visiting that place you used to love. Whatever it is, don't let fear stop you. Take that first step. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. And maybe, just maybe, it'll remind you that love in all its forms is waiting for you to chase it again. Chapter 5. The roadblocks we face. I could feel the tension the moment I stepped into the coffee shop. It was a familiar place, the kind of spot where Alex and I used to hang out for hours, talking about everything and nothing at all. The smell of fresh espresso beans, the hum of quiet conversations in the background, and the soft clink of cups on saucers, it was all just as I remembered. But the moment I spotted Alex sitting at the corner table waiting for me, everything felt different.
I had expected laughter.
I had expected easy conversation, the kind we'd always shared before time and life got in the way. But instead, there was silence, a stillness between us that felt too heavy, too uncomfortable. I walked over to the table, trying to shake off the butterflies fluttering in my stomach. "Hey," I said, offering a smile that felt too forced. Alex looked up, their eyes briefly meeting mine before they dropped to their cup, fiddling with the handle. "Hey," they replied, their voice distant. "How have you been?" It was a simple question, but it felt like a mountain. It had been years since we last spoke, and suddenly, the weight of those years seemed too big to bridge with just a few words. I sat down, my hands suddenly unsure of where to go, resting awkwardly in my lap, tapping against the table, anything to avoid the silence that seemed to fill the space between us. "So, how's work?" I asked, my voice a little too loud in the quiet. "Good," Alex said. The word hung in the air, unfilled. There was something in their eyes, something I couldn't quite place, but I could feel the distance growing with each word left unsaid.
This wasn't how it was supposed to be.
I had imagined our reunion differently, full of the warmth and humor that used to come so easily. But now it was clear that things had changed. Time, pride, and 1,000 little miscommunications had built walls between us.
Walls I wasn't sure how to break down.
The conversation faltered. We talked about work, about mutual friends we hadn't seen in years. about the weather small talk that felt more like a foreign language than the effortless back and forth we used to have. There was no laughter, no easy flow of conversation. Instead, there was the weight of the past sitting between us like an uninvited guest. I tried to push through it. I tried to smile, to joke, to ease the tension, but nothing worked.
It was as though the more I tried to fix things, the more I realized how much had changed.
The connection I had hoped for seemed unreachable, lost in the distance that had grown between us. We sat there for what felt like hours, talking about nothing and everything, until the conversation finally died, and we both sat in that uncomfortable silence once again. I realized then that the chase wasn't always going to be smooth. It wasn't going to be easy. There would be roadblocks. Big ones. Unseen ones. And even when you want something badly, even when you've taken that first step with all the hope in the world, the path isn't always clear. Sometimes you have to face the harsh reality that things have changed, and that's hard. It's uncomfortable, but it doesn't mean the journey is over. It's easy to think that if we simply chase after something, whether it's a lost relationship, a forgotten dream, or a passion we once abandoned, everything will fall into place. But chasing love in any form isn't as simple as showing up and hoping for the best. The chase comes with its own set of roadblocks. Time, pride, and change build walls, sometimes so high and thick that they feel impossible to overcome. But they're not unbreakable. This is where resilience comes in, the ability to keep going even when the road gets rough, even when the results aren't what you expected. Carol Dweck, a psychologist known for her work on the growth mindset, suggests that the way we approach challenges plays a major role in whether or not we succeed. If we see obstacles as fixed, as permanent, then we stop trying. But if we see them as temporary, something to be worked through rather than avoided, we're far more likely to push past them.
Resilience isn't about pretending everything is fine when it's not.
It's about understanding that setbacks are part of the process. It's about recognizing that failure isn't permanent and that change isn't always bad, it's just different. And sometimes it's through the struggle that we grow the most. When I left that coffee shop feeling defeated and uncertain, I knew one thing for sure: I couldn't give up now.
I had come this far.
Yes, the reunion had been awkward. Yes, things hadn't gone as planned. But that didn't mean it was over. It simply meant that the roadblock I'd hit was just one part of the journey. In your own pursuit of love, whether it's a relationship, a dream, or a piece of yourself that you've left behind, you're likely to face roadblocks too. Maybe it's fear of rejection. Maybe it's the weight of past mistakes, or maybe it's the uncertainty of whether it's even worth trying again. This week, take some time to name 3 obstacles you've encountered in your own chase. What's standing in your way? Is it the fear of failure? The risk of rejection? Maybe it's the belief that things will never go back to the way they were. How can you climb over them? Reflect on how resilience could help. Could you reframe the situation? Could you push through the discomfort, knowing that the only way forward is through? What's your plan? What small steps can you take this week to keep moving forward, even if the path doesn't seem clear? Maybe it's another conversation, another attempt, another step in the direction of what you want. Sometimes the roadblocks we face aren't walls, they're just bumps in the road. And while they might stop us for a moment, they don't define the end of the journey. Chapter 6, Rediscovering the Spark. The kitchen smelled like Sunday. It was that warm, comforting scent of roasted chicken mingling with the tang of garlic and onions, the kind of smell that takes you back to childhood, to days when everything felt simple, when the world seemed just a little bit safer. I stood by the stove, stirring the gravy, trying to steady my hands, though my nerves were a different story. My heart was racing, not from the heat of the pot, but from the anticipation of what was about to happen. On the table, Two mismatched plates sat, waiting for their rightful owners, their surfaces gleaming in the soft golden light of the kitchen.
Everything was set, and still I could feel the distance between us.
It had been 2 long years since I'd sat down to share a meal with my mother, just the two of us. Too many years filled with misunderstandings, unspoken words, and the heavy silence that had become a familiar companion in our relationship. Somewhere along the way, our conversations had turned from lively chatter to awkward exchanges. Love had always been there, but it was buried under the weight of daily life, under the pressure of old wounds. But today was different. Today we were starting over, not with grand gestures or apologies, but with a simple meal. A meal that perhaps could help us rebuild what had been lost. The sound of the front door creaked open, and I turned, expecting to see my mother standing there, her face just as it had always been, tired but warm. Instead, she stepped into the kitchen, her smile tentative, almost uncertain. She held a bottle of red wine, something she used to bring with every dinner we had together when I was younger. "Hey," she said softly, setting the bottle down on the counter. Her voice had a softness I hadn't heard in years. "Hey," I replied, my throat suddenly tight. We stood there for a moment, caught between the past and the present, neither of us sure of how to bridge the space between us. But then, almost instinctively, I moved to the table and set the plates down. I could feel her watching me, waiting for the first step, and for the first time in a long time, I wanted to take it. "The gravy's almost done," I said, trying to keep my voice light to make this feel as normal as possible. She nodded and took a deep breath, then picked up the wine. I thought a little something to drink wouldn't hurt. The cork popped with a soft fizz, and the sound felt like a signal, like something breaking free. The tension between us was still there, but in the back of my mind, I held on to the hope that this meal, this moment, could be the spark that would light the way back to each other. We sat down, the clink of forks against plates filling the silence. The first few bites were quiet, unsure, the food somehow tasting both comforting and foreign at the same time. But then something shifted. It wasn't immediate, but it was there. A change in the air, subtle but undeniable. The gravy bubbled on the stove, and so did something in us. We started talking about small things at first: work, the weather, the garden she'd been tending to. But then, slowly, as the evening wore on, we began to drift into deeper waters. She told me about the frustrations she'd been carrying for years, the weight of being a mother, of wanting to do it all but always feeling like she was failing. And I told her about the fear and guilt that had built up inside me, about how I had distanced myself from her because I wasn't sure how to make things right. The words came easier now, not because we had figured it all out, but because we had finally allowed ourselves to be vulnerable in the smallest of ways. By the time we finished dinner, the air felt lighter, and I realized we had made more progress in that hour than we had in the last 5 years. Love isn't gone. Not really. Even when it feels like it's faded, like it's lost to time or to the weight of life's challenges, it's still there waiting to be rekindled. It's waiting for the right moment, the right space to reignite. And often that spark doesn't come from grand gestures or big sweeping changes. It comes in the small, tender moments, the soft clink of forks against plates, the shared smile over a cup of coffee, the way a familiar song can bring all the memories rushing back. Love is like that. It's not always about the big things sometimes. It's in the quiet, ordinary moments. Sometimes it's about showing up. It's about doing the small things together, even when it feels like you've lost the rhythm of it. And sometimes love is rekindled not through perfect words or actions, but through the simple act of being present, of showing up even when you're unsure, of taking a chance on something that feels impossible. In your own journey, there is a love, something, or someone you've left behind. Maybe it's a relationship, a passion, a hobby, or a dream. And like me and my mother, it might feel like too much time has passed, like the spark is gone. But what if it's just waiting for a small, simple act to bring it back to life? This week, I challenge you to try one thing that's tied to that love. Maybe it's cooking a meal you once shared with someone important to you, picking up an old hobby, or visiting a place that once made you feel at home. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be a huge step, but let it be a first step. Let it be a chance to see if the spark still flickers, waiting for you to notice it. What happens when you try? What flickers back? Maybe it's just a small flame at first, a soft warmth. But that warmth in its own quiet way can lead you to something bigger. It can help you rediscover the love that you thought was gone. Chapter 7. The Love That's Changed. The canvas sat before me, stark white and empty, just like the room around me. I hadn't picked up a paintbrush in years, not since I'd packed away my old supplies when life had grown too busy, too chaotic, and far too complicated. But today, for reasons I couldn't quite explain, I found myself here again, standing in front of the easel, unsure where to start. I ran my fingers along the smooth bristles of the brush, the same ones I had used as a teenager when the world seemed endless and my dreams felt larger than life. I had painted then like I had nothing to lose, with bold strokes and wild, unrefined energy.
My art had been messy, full of emotion, and free from doubt.
But now the idea of painting seemed strange, almost foreign. There was a hesitation in me, a distance between who I was then and who I was now. The idea of picking up this passion again was exhilarating, but also terrifying. What if I couldn't find that spark? What if the love I had for painting had changed too much to ever come back? I dipped the brush into a deep blue, the color swirling in the water before bringing it to the canvas. The first stroke was tentative, unsure. I tried to capture the rush of creativity I once felt, but something was different. The lines were too soft, the colors too muted. The chaos of my earlier years had transformed into something quieter, more controlled, but still, it wasn't quite right. I stepped back, the brush hanging loosely in my hand. The canvas was filled with hesitant, delicate strokes, nothing like the vibrant chaos of the paintings I used to create.
There was a subtle beauty to what I had painted, but it lacked the fierceness I remembered.
It wasn't bad, it was just different. The feeling of frustration I'd expected didn't come. Instead, I felt a quiet acceptance. The love I had for painting hadn't disappeared. It had just evolved, just like I had. The energy that used to drive my creativity had shifted, and with it, the way I approached my art. I wasn't the same person I had been when I first picked up a paintbrush all those years ago, and that was okay. Love, like everything else, changes.
I couldn't help but smile at the realization.
The person I had been, the person who had painted with abandon, without a care for anything other than the emotion on the canvas, was still there, deep inside me. But now I had grown, I had learned, and I had changed. My art was no longer a place of wild energy. It was a place of quiet contemplation, of slower, more intentional strokes. And it was beautiful too. What we chase, the passions, the relationships, the dreams that once felt like everything won't be the same when we come back to them. And that's okay. Love in all its forms evolves as we do. The love I had for painting in my youth was raw and untamed, filled with the reckless energy of youth. But now it was softer, more refined. It was still love, still real, but it had changed. This is the truth that we often forget when we think about the things we've left behind, when we feel that longing for something that feels distant, something that we once held so dear. We want it to be the same. We want the passion we once felt to return, to flood us like it once did. But time and experience change us. They shape us. And in turn, they shape the love we feel for the things and people in our lives. It's a process of evolution. The love we once had may look different, but that doesn't make it any less valuable. It simply means that it has grown with us. As Heraclitus said, no man steps in the same river twice. We are always changing, always growing, and that means that what we chase, what we love, will change too. The river flows differently every time, just as our hearts do. This week, I want you to think about a love in your life that has shifted something that once filled you with passion, but now feels distant, different, maybe even unrecognizable. Perhaps it's a career you used to be driven by, a relationship you once had, or a dream you abandoned. Reflect on how this love was for you then and how it feels now. What was it like back then? Think about the feelings that love brought you. What were your emotions, your thoughts, your priorities? How did it fill you?
What made it feel so powerful?
How has it changed? Look at it now. How does it feel different? How have you changed, and how has your relationship with that love shifted as a result? Embrace the shift. This part is important. Embrace the shift. The change doesn't diminish what the love was. It simply marks a new chapter in your life. Recognize the value in the evolution. Sometimes, the love we once had doesn't need to be restored to its former state. It just needs to be understood in its new form. It's easy to mourn the loss of something that no longer feels the same. But if we can allow ourselves to embrace change, we may find that the love we thought was gone is simply waiting for us to see it in a new light. Chapter 8. The Love We Reclaim. The calf smelled like fresh coffee beans, their rich scent mixing with the faint sweetness of pastries warming behind the counter. The soft hum of conversation floated in the background, the clink of mugs, the laughter of friends catching up. The place was alive with energy, and yet there was something incredibly still about the table where I sat, waiting. It had been years since I'd seen Jordan, the kind of years that felt like entire lifetimes had passed between us, full of new jobs, new relationships, new challenges. But even after all that time, even after everything that had happened between us, our falling out, the silence, the weight of unspoken words, there was a familiarity to this moment. A quiet comfort that, despite everything, we had always been able to find with each other. And so we sat there waiting for the other to speak, not as lovers, but as something else, friends maybe, or maybe something in between. I wasn't sure. The past between us was tangled up with too much emotion, too much hurt, and too many regrets. But there was a softness in the air now, the kind of warmth that came from shared history, even if that history wasn't perfect. Jordan arrived with a smile, a little hesitant but warm. I stood up, and without saying anything, we hugged. A simple embrace, but one that felt like it had been a long time coming. When we pulled away, I could see it in Jordan's eyes, an acknowledgement of what we had been, what we had lost, and maybe even a recognition that what was here now was something worth trying to understand. "You look good," I said, trying to break the awkwardness that was settling between us. "Yeah," Jordan chuckled, settling into the chair across from me. "I think you look better. Less stressed, more. I don't know, Free." We laughed, and that small, light-hearted moment was enough to shake off the heaviness that had hung between us for years. The silence wasn't painful anymore. Instead, it felt like something we had both learned to live with, and now, in this quiet calf, it didn't have to carry the weight of old wounds. We ordered coffee black, as always, and began to talk, not about the past, but about the present. About the lives we had built, the places we had been, the things we had learned. There were no grand confessions, no emotional outbursts, just the soft flow of conversation that made time seem to slip by unnoticed. We laughed about the silly things we used to argue over, about the stupid mistakes we'd both made, about our shared love for a band that had been forgotten by everyone else. And then, Somewhere in between the coffee refills and the quiet moments of understanding, I realized something. This wasn't about reclaiming what we had lost. It wasn't about trying to pick up where we had left off, because that wasn't possible anymore. What we were doing was something else. We were rebuilding not a romantic love, but a deep, genuine friendship. And in its own way, that was a victory worth celebrating. The coffee steamed between us, a bridge rebuilt, one small conversation at a time. Sometimes love returns to us in a new form. It doesn't always look like we thought it would, and it certainly doesn't always feel like it did before. But that doesn't mean it's not worth something. Some loves, especially the ones that were once romantic, shift over time. What once was a passionate connection may become a quieter, more peaceful bond, but it's still love. It's still real. When we reunite with someone we once loved, it's easy to look at that person and think that things should be the same, that the connection should be what it was before. But time and change have a way of altering everything, including the way we feel about each other. And that's okay. Sometimes the best way to reclaim love is to let go of the idea that it has to be exactly what it once was and instead embrace what it has become. This reunion with Jordan wasn't about going back.
It wasn't about recreating the past.
It was about finding something new, something that could only exist in the present, in the spaces between us now. A love that had once been romantic, now reborn as a friendship, had its own beauty. It was a love built on laughter, on shared memories, on understanding the person in front of you without needing to hold on to what you once were. In that sense, love's evolution is a kind of victory. It shows us that love isn't finite. It doesn't have to end just because it's no longer what it once was. Love can transform, shift, and evolve into something different, something just as valuable, just as meaningful, even if it's not the same as it was before. Think about a love in your life that you've left behind, a person, a dream, a relationship that faded over time.
What if this love, instead of being lost forever, could come back in a new way?
What if you could redefine it on your own terms? This week, I challenge you to reconnect with one of those loves, but with a fresh perspective. It doesn't have to be romantic. It doesn't even have to be about rekindling something the way it was. Instead, reach out, take the first step to reclaim what was lost, but let it be different. Let it evolve. Who is that love? Who or what represents the love you've left behind? It could be a person you've lost touch with, a dream you've abandoned, or a relationship that has drifted apart. What has changed? How has this love evolved over time? How have you changed? Acknowledge the shifts that have occurred in both of you and accept that it may not be the same as it was before. How will you redefine it? Take the first step to reconnect, but do so with the intention of embracing the new form of the love. You're not trying to recreate what was lost. You're allowing it to exist in a way that works for both of you now. The coffee steams between you, a bridge rebuilt, and with each word, each laugh, you begin to see that sometimes love doesn't need to return in its original form to be worthwhile. Sometimes it just needs to be seen, understood, and appreciated for what it is now. Chapter 9. The Love We Release. The petals fell slowly, one by one, drifting down onto the still surface of the lake. Each one carried a memory, a dream that had once felt like everything. There was a quiet beauty in the moment, the way the petals floated, then sank, lost to the water, but never truly gone. They were part of the lake now, part of the earth, part of something larger.
I stood on the shore, feeling the cool wind brush against my skin, and for a moment it felt as though the world itself had paused.
It was just me and the water, and the memories that had led me here, standing on the edge of a goodbye I wasn't sure I was ready to say. The dream I had once clung to so tightly was now slipping away, not in a dramatic sudden break, but in a quiet, inevitable unraveling. It wasn't the dream I had imagined, not anymore. The plans, the hopes, the expectations I had built around it were no longer a fit for the person I had become. And so I stood there, the petals of my farewell scattered before me, realizing that sometimes letting go was the only way to honor the love that once was. I had always thought of releasing something as a form of failure, a defeat. But standing there, watching the petals dance on the surface of the water, I began to understand that letting go wasn't about giving up. It wasn't about admitting that the dream was worthless, or that it had been wrong to hope. It was simply about recognizing that some dreams, like some loves, are meant to be released in order to make space for new ones. New possibilities, new passions, new paths. The love I was releasing was no less real than the dreams I had achieved. It had shaped me, taught me, and guided me in ways that had changed my life. But now, it was time to let go. Time to say farewell, to thank it for what it had given me, and then allow it to rest in the past. Letting go is never easy. It's an act that feels counterintuitive, like we're abandoning something that once brought us joy, or purpose, or meaning. But in reality, letting go isn't failure. It's a way of honoring what once was while making room for what's next. So many of us hold on to dreams, relationships, and loves long after they've served their purpose. We carry them because we fear that releasing them means we're admitting they didn't matter, that they weren't worth our time. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Letting go is not an erasure of the past. It's an acknowledgement that the time has come to move forward. It's about giving ourselves permission to outgrow what we once held dear. Every culture has a way to say goodbye. In some places, it's a ceremonial release, a ritual to honor the past and prepare for the future. In others, it's a quiet moment of reflection, a simple act of turning away from what no longer serves us. The way we say goodbye may differ, but the act of release is universal. It's something we all must face at some point, and it's something we must learn to embrace. The love we release, whether it's a person, a dream, or a chapter of our lives, is never truly gone. It remains a part of us, woven into the fabric of who we are. But by releasing it, we make space to embrace what is coming next, what is yet to be written. This week, I invite you to create your own ritual of release. Find something that symbolizes the love, dream, or piece of your past that no longer fits. It might be an object, a letter, or even a place that holds the weight of something you need to let go. The act of releasing doesn't have to be grand or dramatic. It's simply a way to acknowledge what once was and set it free. Choose a symbol. Pick something that represents what you're letting go. It could be a physical object, like an old photograph, a memento, or a piece of jewelry, or something more abstract, like a thought or an emotion. It should be something that holds meaning but also represents the past you need to release. Find a meaningful place, whether it's a lake, a quiet park, or a spot that holds significance to you. Choose a place that feels right for this moment of release. The place should be one where you can reflect, where you feel connected to both your past and your future. Perform the ritual with intention. Let go of your symbol. You might place it in the water, bury it in the earth, or simply write a letter and let it float away in the wind. Whatever feels right to you. As you do so, take a moment to reflect on the love you are releasing. Acknowledge the lessons, the growth, and the beauty it brought to your life. Then let it go, trusting that it will always be a part of you. Embrace what's next. As you release what no longer fits, open yourself to what's to come. Trust that the space you've made will be filled with new love, new dreams, and new possibilities. Chapter 10. The Love We Carry Forward. The morning light filtered softly through the window, casting a warm glow across the room. I sat at the kitchen table, a cup of tea in my hands, the steam rising in delicate tendrils. It was a quiet kind of morning, the world still and peaceful, wrapped in the calm that comes when the rush of life has yet to take hold. In front of me, a photo sat on the table, framed in wood that had worn over the years, like the memory it held. I smiled at it, just a simple smile, but one full of love, nostalgia, and a strange sense of peace. The photo was of a time long past, a chapter of my life that had been full of joy and laughter. Faces I loved were frozen in that moment, smiles wide and eyes bright. But unlike the frantic search for love I had once embarked on, this smile felt different. It wasn't a longing to reclaim something lost. It wasn't a pursuit of a love that had slipped through my fingers. It was a quiet understanding that, in this moment, I carried that love with me. The love I had once sought so desperately was no longer something to chase, it was simply part of who I was now. I touched the frame gently, the corners of my lips still lifted in that soft, peaceful smile. The love I had been searching for, the love I had thought I needed to find, was always here. It had always been here, waiting for me to realize that it wasn't something external I had to chase. It was a love I carried within myself, strong and resilient, made even more beautiful by everything I had lost and found along the way. I thought about all the moments I had spent chasing after things, dreams, people, passions that I believed would complete me. I thought about the love I had once sought in others, the love I thought was out of reach, and the dreams I had thought were meant for someone else. I had spent so much of my life believing that love was something I had to find, as if it were a treasure hidden somewhere in the world. But what I had learned over time was that love wasn't something to find. It was something to realize, something to carry forward. The truest love we reclaim is the one we find within ourselves. All the love we've experienced, all the people we've loved and lost, all the dreams we've held on to or let go, these things don't just disappear. They become part of us. We carry them forward, woven into the fabric of who we are. The love we once sought in external places, whether in relationships, accomplishments, or passions, is not a distant goal anymore. It's inside of us, stronger for everything we've been through. It's in the quiet moments of reflection, in the understanding that we are enough, exactly as we are. The chase ends when we realize that the love we've been searching for has always been with us, waiting for us to recognize it. We no longer need to chase love. Instead, we learn to carry it. The love we carry forward is not a static thing. It's alive and growing, shaped by the lessons we've learned, the joys we've experienced, and the pain we've endured. It's the kind of love that doesn't need to be sought out, because it is always there, steady and constant. This is the true reclamation of love. It's not about finding something new or bringing back what's been lost. It's about realizing that the love you've been searching for has always been inside of you. The chase was never the destination. The journey was about discovering that you were the love you were looking for all along. Take a moment right now to stand in front of a mirror. Look into your own eyes and say, "I carry love with me always." Feel the truth of it settle deep inside you. Know that you are loved, not because of what you've done or what you've lost, but simply because you are. The love you carry with you is enough. You are enough. Take a deep breath and let that affirmation fill you. In a world that often tells us we need more, we need to search, we need to find, remember that the truest love is not something out there waiting for us. It is right here within us, growing with every step we take forward. End poetic reflection. The chase ends where I begin. Whole enough, loved. Not in the search, but in the quiet understanding that the love I sought was never outside me, but inside always. Conclusion, the love that stays. As I walked down the familiar path, the one I had walked countless times before, the world around me felt different. The air was lighter somehow, and my steps felt softer against the earth. I could hear the leaves rustling overhead, the wind moving through them like a whispered secret, and for the first time in a long while, I felt at peace. This was the same path I had walked 1,000 times, a road I had taken for years, filled with memories, some joyous, some painful. But today it felt new. It felt like I had arrived at a place I had been searching for, even though I hadn't known it until now. The love I had chased for so long, the love I thought I needed to find outside of myself, had settled deep within me. And with it came a quiet understanding that the chase had never really been about the love itself. It had always been about me, about becoming the person who could carry that love forward. The journey had started with echoes, the faint whispers of love lost, of longing that lingered in quiet corners of my heart. Echoes of people, places, and dreams I had left behind, still calling to me in moments of stillness. They had been loud enough to remind me of what I was missing, yet soft enough to allow me to hear my own heart beneath the surface. It was in these echoes that I first realized how much I had left behind and how much it still mattered. Then came the chase. I pursued love as if it were a treasure to be found, a thing I could capture and hold as if it would complete me. I chased it in relationships, in success, in dreams that felt just out of reach. I ran after it, breathless, convinced that love was something I needed to find. But with each step, I discovered that the pursuit was never the answer. The more I chased, the more I realized that love wasn't something that could be captured. It was something that had to be recognized, something that lived inside of me all along. And then, in the final act of this journey, came the embrace, the acceptance, the peace. I stopped chasing love. I stopped searching for it in others or in the places I thought it could be found. Instead, I learned to embrace the love I already carried with me. The love that had been inside of me, shaped by every experience, every person, every loss, and every joy. The love that had stayed with me even when I thought I had lost it. Now, as I walked this path, I realized that love was not something to chase or find, it was something to carry forward. Not as a pursuit, but as a quiet, constant presence. It wasn't a thing to hold on to desperately, but a feeling to be nurtured and allowed to grow. The love I had once searched for was now within me, woven into the fabric of who I was. The sun was setting as I continued my walk, the warm golden light of dusk casting long shadows on the ground. The familiar sights of the path, wildflowers, moss-covered stones, the towering oak tree up ahead felt like old friends. But today, they felt different. Today, they felt like they were part of a larger picture, one that included me fully for the first time.
I wasn't searching anymore.
I wasn't chasing. I was simply walking, moving forward with the love I had reclaimed. I paused by the oak tree, the place where I had often sat in the past, lost in thought, wondering where love had gone. I had searched for answers in all the wrong places. But now, standing there, I felt a quiet sense of gratitude. The love I had once sought so desperately wasn't somewhere far off. It wasn't a place I needed to reach. It was here, in me, part of who I had always been. I smiled softly, touching the bark of the tree as though it too understood. The love I had chased had led me on a winding path full of twists and turns, losses and gains. It had taken me through the echoes of my past, the pursuit of what I thought I wanted, and the peace of letting go. And now I could feel it, settled and steady within me, a quiet but powerful force that would guide me forward. The love you've left behind isn't gone. It's waiting for you to return to it, not to reclaim it as it once was, but to understand it for what it is now. Chase the love you've left behind, not to catch it, but to know it. And when you do, you will be faced with a choice. What stays? What do you carry forward with you, and what do you let go? You don't need to chase love anymore. You simply need to recognize it for what it is. The love you seek is already inside of you, stronger for everything you've experienced, richer for the losses and the growth that have shaped it. So go ahead, chase the love you left behind, but do it not to find something missing, but to see what you have already gathered along the way. Love isn't lost. It's waiting for you to find it, to hold it, or to set it free. You're the one it's been chasing all along. It's always been inside of you, quietly waiting for you to recognize it, to embrace it, and to carry it forward. And now, as you take that first step, remember, the love you've been searching for isn't somewhere out there, waiting to be found. It's right here within you, always. All that remains is for you to claim it, to know it, and to walk forward with love by your side.